Hey guys, welcome to She Knows Arsenal. Make sure you guys are liking this video and subscribing to the channel and getting into the chat and letting me know how you guys are thinking and feeling. I feel like I'm a little glitchy, so just give me a minute. It'll all clear up. The internet, it does what it does, whether I want it to or not. But yeah, guys, it is Tuesday, and no, I didn't do any live shows yesterday, but a lot of you guys will have seen that I put out the very first episode of the Canon Club, and that's what I've been working on over the last couple of weeks. Um, I have the Patreon side of She Knows Arsenal, and over the last couple of months, I've been trying to fine tune it and figure out what formula really works for me and what really works for the patrons. And I do feel like this channel needs a little bit of an ensemble show. It needs a show that has 4 or so guests that reoccur on the channel and have multiple shows come out per week. And so I had Colleen on the show, I had Harry on the show, I had Femi on the show, I had Laura on the show, and those 4 people in particular, and my friend Gabby, were probably the best in terms of what your guys' feedback was. And so I decided to put them all together and put them in a show. Um, and it's more than just a show, it's a community, and we'll do more things with the Canon Club on Patreon, like a Discord and things like that, and hopefully live shows in the future. So I just wanted to let you guys know that all of the feedback that I got on the Canon Club was absolutely amazing. It's one of the best podcasts that I've had. Well, these are not really podcasts. Like, these shows that I'm doing are like live, just you and me. But in terms of the podcasty types of shows that I've done, the the feedback that I got on the Canon Club first episode was amazing. So if you guys haven't seen it, make sure you guys pop onto that after this. It's underneath the Canon Club, like on the channel. You guys can go through it. And then if you want ad-free access to the Canon Club and more perks and things like that, you can join on the Patreon side. But there'll be a free episode on YouTube every Monday. So yeah, there you go. So let's see what you guys are saying really quick, because on this show, we're going to be talking about some of the things that Ornstein just came out with, talking about our transfer window, and then as well as Raya. And also, we're going to talk about Ramsdale. So, yeah. But I want to see who's all in here. So make sure you guys are in the chat. Let me know that you guys are here, all that kind of stuff. Jagoon says, don't really understand why, but we knew it was coming. Yeah, I've been saying from pretty much the beginning that it's like Raya is going to become a permanent deal. And I feel like some people have been a little bit delusional over it, but it was always going to happen. Whether or not that's right or wrong, we'll discuss that. But yeah, the idea that it in some way like Raya wasn't going to become a permanent signing, I feel some people were like more hoping than like actually like reading what like some credible journalists were actually saying. Chosen One says, honestly, I love both Raya and Rambo. And even if I want him to stay at Arsenal, I want him to go and achieve his greatness, even if it's not um, at this club. Super Kai says, hey, Jess, hope you're all well today. Watched the first episode of the Canon Club podcast and wanted to say it was amazing. Cannot wait for the next episode and recommend everyone go watch it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Like I said, every Monday, you guys will get an episode on the channel. You guys can also listen to it on Spotify as well as Apple. And then the Friday episodes plus ad-free access to the podcast from Monday are on Patreon. So if you guys want to do that. But yeah, I enjoyed that very much. I love shows where it's like multiple people. Like, I love that kind of stuff. I love arguing, my thing. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. Lots of fun. John Donut says, hey Jess, hello to you as well. Boy says, I will be there next time Patino's debut is slandered. World Boss says, hey Jess, I am so happy with the new show, The Canon Club. Keep up the greatness. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'm like really taken aback by all of the like kind comments on it. I thought I was going to put it up there and I didn't know what was going to happen with it, but it seems like it's went over pretty well. So I'm happy. I'm happy about that. Boy says, quite frankly, I think Ramsdale is the better of the 2 goalkeepers now. Arteta made another mistake at goalkeeper. We'll talk about that. And Kenneth says, I like that show. So thank you so much. So, excuse me. Yeah. Let's talk about what David Ornstein has said on Arsenal's transfer endeavors over the next couple of months. Ornstein has said Arsenal have identified and prepared options in multiple positions for now, the summer, and beyond. But whether any of those can or will be acted upon before the end of the month is another matter altogether. It will be largely dependent on whether and which players leave and what space and finance that would create to do business the other way. Sorry for the boring answer, but to my knowledge, it's the reality. Arsenal really need to get their existing players who are proven to deliver the results the club wants to rediscover their best form. That seems to be a bigger issue right now than recruitment. It seems very likely that Raya will become a permanent member of Arsenal squad. That is another ongoing cost that needs to be accounted for. So basically, what he's saying is there's probably not going to be any signings. And if anybody is surprised by that, know your club. Know your club. It's very unlikely that we're going to do big January business in any January window. Even last January was kind of like one of our bigger windows in recent times, and it was Jorginho and Trossard, who I think both players are great, but it's not like we were bringing in Mbappe, so I think some of the conversations earlier on in the window were kind of more about like, what Arsenal could do. And Arsenal probably did put some feelers out there just in case they did decide to sell a player here or there. But ultimately, Arsenal kind of tend to be, the weirdest thing about Arsenal is like they tend to be willing to make big decisions in circumstances where maybe that type of heavy-handedness is not required. But when you desperately need a striker or you could easily move on Eddie Nketiah, they make it seem as though it's the biggest decision in the world. Like they have no problem figuring out ways to, move on Ozil or move on Aubameyang or bring in Raya and create a circus around the goalkeeper situation. They have no problem sending 70 million to Chelsea for Havertz, but they're very scared to let Eddie Nketiah go and use that money to reinvest into a player that we actually really need or whatever. And so that will always be the strangest thing. Like if Arsenal were historically always, especially under this regime, unwilling to make big decisions, like and kind of are slow to make big decisions and didn't show any level of ruthlessness, then I would kind of understand it more. But I understand it a lot less when you have made heavy-handed decisions that probably didn't need a hammer, but you used a hammer anyway. But when it comes down to a January window where we have players that we could sell, it's like, well, no, let's wait. Let's be cautious. It's like, well, you're not really cautious when you do other shit. So why can't you be cautious? Throw caution to the wind this time. It's like, why can't you guys make a move? So Ornstein is basically saying what we all kind of are feeling is that Arsenal are probably not going to do any massive business in this January window. They may not do anything. And I think the most important thing that he did say was that it's important that Arsenal get the players that they know can perform and contribute to do that from now until the end of the season. And we found it very difficult to find a period of time where almost everybody was in good form. And that has just been, we've been waiting for it to click. And then when it kind of clicked, it didn't really click enough. And then now we're not clicked at all. And so that's up to Arsenal and Arteta and the players in Dubai to figure out what their life is about so that they can start clicking from now into the end of the season. Now, even a fully clicked on Arsenal squad probably still has some pieces missing. That the Arsenal team that was playing last season that was scoring so many goals needed to create a lot of chances. So there are a lot of moving parts here, and there are a lot of players that I'm looking at that I'm like, if you don't get your shit together, we're not going to do anything. But that's up to Arteta and the team to figure that out. Now, David Ornstein was speaking about David Raya becoming a permanent transfer, and when it was funny because when it first happened, I think they said from the beginning that it was going to be permanent, and the only reason why we did this was because of FFP. But I do feel like there were a lot of Arsenal fans that almost like didn't accept it. They couldn't accept that it was a loan with like basically with an obligation and that this person will become a full-time, like it's not just a trial, because people were like, oh, well, we'll try it. And if it doesn't work, then this is great business. no, it was literally just buy now, pay later, for David Raya. It's going to be permanent. And so listen, Raya has not set he's not set the world alight in any way, shape, or form. I think the Luton game was the biggest, kind of like, okay, so you're just going to chuck the ball in the back of your net, just like Ramsdale. That's not good. That's not good at all. And the one thing that I do think that Raya has struggled with is he hasn't really made like a game saving save yet to the level that Ramsdale has, right? People are still thinking about the Madison, save, and the Salah save, and these types of big saves, and they're like, where's Raya saves? He's not really making those types of saves, but really Arsenal are not really allowing as many chances and as many shots as they were last season. So he has less opportunities to make those saves, but when he does have the opportunity, he's not making them. And so Raya becoming permanent for me is like, I already knew that was going to happen. And so I'm like, okay, whatever. But did it have to happen this way? No. Did Arsenal have to make this into a priority? Have we seen any uptick in our overall results because we've switched our goalkeeper? Not really. I think there was a period of time where the combination of our back line plus Raya was giving us like a really solid back line, and we were seeing but it kind of fell apart in December. Everything fell apart in December, and now it's like, okay, everything that happened before the December kind of crumble, it feels like it never happened. And so I don't want to sit here and pretend like I didn't see any positivity from Raya plus our back line. I didn't see any positivity from Kai Havertz. But ultimately, those two decisions haven't really given us enough uptick where it feels like we've gotten any bang for our buck. That's £100 million spent. And we're not really any better. And a lot of people would say we're significantly worse. Now, do I think we're significantly worse because Raya's in there and Ramsdale is not? No, I don't. I don't think that that's really how it works. Do I think we're just significantly worse because Havertz is in there and Granit Xhaka is not? Not necessarily. I don't feel like it's that simple. I think our main issues in the last 5-6 games has been we create chances and we don't put them away. But your original agenda from the beginning of the season will always be top of mind when we're not playing well. When we lost to West Ham, I think it was, when we lost to West Ham, the first thing I saw people saying is, why did we spend all that money on Havertz and Raya? And for me, it's like, well, I didn't really understand the Raya thing because the goals that West Ham scored weren't really Raya's fault, but whatever, but I understand that that's like a topic of conversation. It's a very sensitive topic amongst Arsenal fans because it's not so much about Raya, it's about the player that he replaced. And Ramsdale came in against Ramsdale came in. Oh no, he was there against Liverpool, and I thought he played well. I think he, I don't want to revise history, so I'll remind you guys that he wasn't particularly good against Brentford. He wasn't particularly good against West Ham the first time around, and he wasn't particularly good against there was a Brentford where Raya couldn't play against Brentford in the league. So let's not pretend like since he's come back in the last 3 games, he was poor up until this last game where he played against Liverpool. But I won't act like he didn't play well. Now, what I think we have right now is a situation where we have 2 goalkeepers that really don't give us a lot of confidence. Now, some people will pretend like Ramsdale gives them infinite amounts of confidence. He doesn't. Like anybody that actually watches our games and is honest will say that Ramsdale has moments and has had quite a few moments where he flatters to deceive. He's good when his back is against the wall and he has to make those saves, but when he's not really concentrated for the entire game, he can let in very soft goals like he did at the beginning of this season. So it feels like we have a situation where we have 2 goalkeepers that are not really playing to the best of their ability on a consistent basis. And for me, it's like to watch somebody like Ramsdale, who started off his first season like a house on fire, and to kind of his form really dip down. last season, and then for Raya to be like the fourth best goalkeeper last season to being somebody that looks like a deer caught in the headlights at Luton is shocking. We have two goalkeepers that really don't fit the bill. And people have asked questions around Arteta and the goalkeeper coach, and why is it such that we can't just bring in a world-class goalkeeper? Why is it that we have these goalkeepers that kind of one fits the ball playing out from the back, but the other one is more of a better shot stopper? And why don't we just have a goalkeeper that does all that? It's difficult to find those types of goalkeepers because Allison doesn't always exist on the market. But I do think questions have to be asked a little bit about, you know, why this was a priority, why this was a priority, why was it done in the way that it was done, and why are we not seeing the level of uptick in playing out from the back that, like when I showed you guys this this chart the other day, the thing that stood out to me more than the Havertz thing, and this was the ball progression per possession lost, is how much possession Raya has. And this is by design. It is by design that Arsenal's goalkeeper takes up a position almost like a left center back and does more of the progressing of the ball than Gabriel. And I'm wondering if that's something that's necessary. Like, do we need our goalkeeper to be so involved? Do we need to be luring people on? We don't even do that thing that we used to do where the goalkeeper gets it in like a difficult position and we try to pop it around them and free ourselves. We're sitting at the halfway line almost every single game trying to unpick a lock. So what's the point? What's the point if we're not going to be able to, if teams don't press us anymore, which they don't, they don't. They don't press us. They don't press us. If teams don't press us and we're sitting at the halfway line and Saliba has the ball on his toe all the time, then what's the point of having a goalkeeper that's much better at playing, or supposedly better at playing with the ball at his feet, when we don't really get to see him like doing that stuff? We don't get to see it a lot, I don't think. We see him do some things, like I've seen him do some good passes, like I've seen him do some things, but I just wonder if like we've seen enough, you know? I think Raya can get better from here, by the way. I don't think like it's all done for him or anything like that. I just feel like the way that it was brought up, like the way that it started, having the person that probably everybody at the club doesn't, besides Arteta and Edu and Inaki Kanya, are probably the only people that felt like Ramsdale had to be replaced this season. So it might have come to a shock for so many people to see that Raya's coming in. And oh, by the way, after this international break, he's going to be the starter and Ramsdale is out the team. The way that they did it was so messy and so convoluted and so circus-like that there's just no way, you know what I mean? That like, that they could have ever thought that this was a good idea to disrupt a team this much. They're unwilling to disrupt the team by moving on Eddie, but they were willing to start our season off with a circus around our goalkeeper situation that probably no one in the club could have anticipated but those three people. And so I know Raya is going to become permanent. We all know he's going to become permanent. Should Ramsdale get more chances? I want you guys to let me know in the comments if you feel like he should. I see people watching like training clips and saying he looks sharp. You guys, everybody looks sharp in training. I saw a training video of Eddie Nketiah being able to bang in a shot, top bins with his left foot. It doesn't matter. Like, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, do you guys think that Ramsdale should get another chance to like get his spot back based on how he's played in his last couple of games? So that's Brentford in the Cup, that's Brentford in the league, and that's West Ham in the Carabao Cup, and the game that he played against Liverpool. Or should Raya just keep his spot and it be what it's been? Because we, at this point, we probably won't see Ramsdale anymore. I saw a tweet that said, if we're out of all domestic cups, why not just sell Ramsdale in January? Because you have no real like want to play him. You don't want to play him, you know? And so if we're out of both domestic cups, which we are, then there's not going to be any opportunities for Ramsdale to play. And I get there's the odd chance that maybe Raya gets injured. But really, again, this is a player that you could sell that you don't want, that you're going to be trying to sell in the summer, that could help us bring in somebody in January that could help us save our season. It's unlikely that Ramsdale from the bench is going to save our season rather than getting that money and putting it towards like a attacker or a midfielder or something, you know? And so it will always go down. The summer window will always go down as a very wasteful window, I think, for a lot of people, because as much as I do think that Raya is a really good goalkeeper and I think his form will go up and stuff like that, I don't like the way that it was done, and it's caused an unnecessary amount of chaos. And they're also unwilling to do the right thing, which is sell Ramsdale as soon as possible. They should have been willing to sell him in the summer if they were going to bring in a new goalkeeper, but they tried this whole like, oh my God, we're going to do two goalkeepers and blah, blah, blah. No. You see how quickly that didn't work out because it was a lie. It was a lie. The whole, oh, they're going to fight for their position was a lie. It's a total lie. And it was a lie from the beginning. And it was obvious that it was a lie too. It was obvious that it was a lie because who believed Arteta when he said that they were going to be fighting for positions? I didn't. I didn't. So it's crazy. It really is. Um, let's see. I'm trying to go back because I know I've been talking for a while. J15 says Raya is better than Ramsdale, but I still don't trust Raya. Um, yeah, I mean, it's I don't think a lot of people do trust Raya because he hasn't really had that level of performance that I feel like makes people trust. I feel like we talk about goalkeepers way too much. Like I was saying this on the Cannon Club as well. Like the amount of time that Arsenal fans spend talking about Eddie Nketiah and the Ramsdale situation, Raya Ramsdale, we're talking about our goalkeeper and our freaking backup striker. Those are not conversations that I feel like we should be having on a regular basis. Like the goalkeeper should kind of just be the goalkeeper. It should be settled. It should just be settled. It should not be this, And if they weren't 100% confident in Ramsdale, which I do believe, if you're honest with yourself, you might have had a little in the back of your mind last season saying, "What's happened to him?" Because I know those conversations were being had because I was a part of them. Many group chats, many tweets. What's happened to Ramsdale? His form has dropped off a cliff. And at the beginning of the season as well, he's letting in every single shot that's on target. So if Ramsdale was not good enough and they felt like he wasn't good enough, they should have just done the right thing and made it a settled situation. Sell Ramsdale. Don't just drop him down to the number 2, because the goalkeeper situation, as much as they're trying to rewrite and like recreate the wheel, the goalkeeper is the goalkeeper. It's number 1, number 2. Don't care what Brighton's doing. Brighton are doing whatever. They're not a top 4 club. No top 4 club does this, you know? And so they made a big mess out of nothing, and they should have done the right thing and given Raya at least a fighting chance, at starting off with a clean slate, but they didn't. They had the guy that he replaced hanging around, his dad talking on podcasts, it's the beginning of the season has been pretty much like a circus, if I'm honest. James T says Ramsdale should have been our next David Seaman. I mean, do you think he was David Seaman-esque in any way? Like David Seaman and Ramsdale, I think, are completely different stratospheres. I mean, just because you're English doesn't mean you're David Seaman. Again, if you're honest, you had questions about Ramsdale and whether or not he was good enough, because I don't think he is. But is Raya good enough? That's also a question out there. And so for me, it's either neither of them are good enough, or Raya shows that he can be good enough. I don't think either one of them are really showing the levels. It's whoever's on the bench tends to look world class when the guy that's out there is not performing. And Ramsdale had a good performance against Liverpool, but they still conceded 2 goals. And I feel like if the roles were reversed, people would be saying, well, why didn't Raya save those 2 goals? Why didn't he save those 2 goals? Nobody's asking questions about Ramsdale, and they really shouldn't, because I don't think he could have gotten to any of those goals. I don't think the Diaz one is one that he could have gotten, and I definitely don't think that the one that Kiwior heads in the back of the net, that happens all the time, when somebody's back there and they're not on the same page, and we're really poor at defending corners at the moment. So, You know what I mean? But it depends on who it is. People were unwilling to, like, Raya's had performances just like Ramsdale against Liverpool, where we still conceded the goals. They weren't really easy to get to, but people decided that Raya needed to save those goals because they don't like Raya. Like, I just feel like the fact that we're having goalkeeper wars and it's player FC with goalkeepers and we're having these conversations on a weekly basis means that we don't have the right goalkeeper, whether it's Ramsdale or Raya. We don't have it. And hold on. Oh, I just saw something that I'm gonna address in a second, but I just feel like, you know, who's running the show? Like, who's making these decisions? Because we just didn't need to do this, because I did think we needed to look at the goalkeeper situation, but it was nowhere near top of my list in the summer. And Arsenal rushed it and it hasn't worked, Denzel says, what's crazy is we probably won't make more or close to his 30 million plus transfer. What's crazy is we probably won't make more or closer to. You mean for Ramsdale? I mean, if we don't sell Ramsdale for 40 million, I'm gonna spit nails. Like, we should be selling Ramsdale for at least 40 million to a Premier League club, to Newcastle or to Chelsea. They're both interested in him. You should sell to somebody that has the money. You know, but Arsenal really struggle. I feel like they really struggle to get the fees that they should get. Nico says, Jess, if I recall correctly, didn't you say you would want Arteta sacked if we don't win anything after the Liverpool game? But on the Cannon Club, you said you would still give him another year. No, I said it depends on the context. I've always said it depends on the context. I feel like, so I said at the beginning of the season that he needed to win a trophy. I didn't care which one it was. And that's why when we went out of the Carabao Cup and we went out of the FA Cup, I was really upset because I feel like it's going to be easier to win one of those domestic cups and really concentrate on those than to win the league, because we already dropped so many points and we just don't look like a team that's going to win the league right now. And then we also have Champions League. So context is always important. If we miss out on the Premier League by a point, right? Like, we go down to the wire with City and it's only by a point, and we do well in the Champions League and we go out to Real Madrid in the semifinal, it'll be more difficult for me to be like, yeah, sack him, because I don't think you can say you have to win the Premier League or the Champions League. I don't think you can say that. I think context is always key in this. If because in the domestic cups are what they are, like, if you go out, whatever. But then there's more pressure on the Premier League. And I just feel like when you look at what we're up against when it comes to City and, Liverpool and stuff like that, to say, well, if Arteta does not win the Premier League or the Champions League, he has to go without any sort of context, I feel like is disingenuous and kind of like to say you want him out. But, if he goes out sad and we are in a top 4 scrap and we're nowhere near the pace in the Premier League, because from now on we should be toe to toe with everybody because we're out of both domestic cups. So there's not really that much distraction except for Champions League. So I expect for our form to go up in the league significantly, to stop dropping points, and for us to be really close. But if we're in like 4th and we're 10 points away from, and we slide away and, we go out in February of the Champions League, then yeah, I want him gone. But for me, it's all about context. It's all about context. And that's why these conversations don't really come across well when people are like, so if he doesn't win a trophy, you want him sacked. Well, yeah, he has to, like, for me, he had to win a trophy this season, or I'm like thinking you're not the guy. But if you're going for the Premier League and you miss out by a point and you go far in the Champions League, you go out to a better team, that context has to be there. It just has to, because I feel like people forget that, like, Klopp didn't win for Liverpool like the first 4 years of his being at Liverpool, and he didn't win any of the domestic cups, but he was really close in the Premier League almost every single year. And you can respect that. You can respect a team with less resources than Manchester City, and with, Manchester City have the best coach in the world. So if you're 1 point behind them and you're at least in the race and you're making it difficult for them. I can respect that. But what I cannot respect is going out of both domestic cups sad, and then going into a top 4 race sad, and then going out of Champions League sad. Like, the end of our season has got to be strong. Has got to be strong, you know? And so that's why it's context is so important in these conversations. But I really want him to win something this season, because I just feel like if he doesn't, I'm feeling like he's not the guy, because he had so many opportunities and he's made such big decisions that have hurt us. Because we could have had like a big gap at the front. We could have had a big gap at the front this season. It still may not have been enough. Manchester City probably still steamroll everybody from now into the end of the season, but we don't even have that gap, and some of the reason why we don't have that gap, or at least we're not top of the league right now, is because of the decisions that he's made. So I hope that makes sense. It's probably feels like fence sitting, but I'm feeling like if he doesn't win any trophies this season, he's not the guy. And I'm very open to the idea of another coach coming in. But do I feel like you sack him if he does not win the Champions League or the Premier League? I feel like that's extremely disingenuous, considering the competition and without any real context. We're going to sack Mikel Arteta because he's 1 point away from winning the Premier League. No. If he's 10 points away from the Premier League or slides away, then we need to talk about it a little bit more. But yeah. So I don't know how to describe it without people just being like, well, you should just be so cut and dry. It's never that cut and dry. It's never black and white. It's just never. When you talk about sacking managers, it's never black and white. It's not as simple as people make it seem. That's why people don't do it like right away. That's why managers get more time. It's not that easy, so context is key. I want to see what happens from now until the end of the season. I really want to see from now until the end of the season, but I do feel like a lot of people are like, if he doesn't win anything this season, or I saw people saying from the beginning of the season, if he doesn't win the Champions League or the Premier League, he has to go. And for me, I feel like Harry made the most sense when he talked about it on the Cannon Club, is just say you want him out. If you said from the beginning of the season that he had to win major honors or go, meaning he had to win the Champions League, like a competition we haven't been in 7 years, or win the Premier League, which at the beginning of this season, we had maybe a 15% chance of winning, and Manchester City were the heavy favorites still. You just want Mikel Arteta out, because you set him up for something that he probably, percentage-wise, he's not going to do. It's very unlikely he will do it. So just say you want him out. Just say you want him out. But that's why going out of the domestic cups for me is very damaging, is because it makes it more difficult for you to meet your goals, which your goals should be winning something at the very least. But if from now until the end of the season, we miss out on the Premier League by a point and we get into the semifinals, we go out to fucking Real Madrid, I'm probably going to be a little bit less bullish about he has to go. It's all about context, and people want to remove context a lot. And just say you want him out. Just say that. Just say, you know what? I just don't like Arteta that much, so I just want him out. Just say that, because saying that from the beginning of the season, he had to win the Premier League and the Champions League, I was like, you just want him out. That's it. Richard says, during preseason, the elephant in the room was the striker situation, and we ignored it. I think this was worse than the goalkeeper circus. Yeah, not bringing in somebody else to relieve the pressure off of some of the attackers that we have, I feel like was a big mistake, which was something that I didn't even really take into consideration as much as I probably should have, but I'm not running the club, right? But I back these attackers, and when I say these attackers, I mostly mean Jesus and Martinelli and Saka and Odegaard, to have their form go up in the back end of the season. I could have never imagined Martinelli's form and the way that he's fallen off of a cliff, some of it his own doing, some of it tactical. Could have never imagined that, but I rate the guy and I think he'll do fine. But for Arsenal to sit there and to Arteta to say that he knew that was a one-off last season and they weren't going to be able to replicate those numbers, and then to go out there and not buy an attacker, for me is just negligence. Like, why are you not buying somebody? And the goalkeeper conversation was well below that. Replacing Xhaka, bringing in a defender, bringing it, those things were so much higher on the list than a goalkeeper, but goalkeeper ended up being so important. And I just don't understand why it was so important and why Anaki Kanya has so much fucking carte blanche to like make these decisions, because I feel like he has a big role to play in all of this. He doesn't like Ramsdale for whatever reason, and we got to get Raya in, and we're going to do this nonsense. No, 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 no. John Donut says, bro, if we sign Benzema this January, would be Ozil levels of wild Benzema to the carpet. We're not signing Benzema, you guys. Let's be serious. Super Kai says, whoever the goalkeeper will be by the start of next season needs to be our number one for the next couple of years, because we can't keep buying keepers and then new ones within 18 months. And we bought a lot of goalkeepers. I'd written it down at some point, but since Arteta has been in whatever, we bought so many goalkeepers. Like, we brought in so many. Like, I know, like, what, Ramsdale, Raya, Matty Ryan as well, and maybe one more. Like, we've done goalkeeper over so many times, and this is what I'm saying about, like, it's making it more difficult for us to move on to positions that actually matter, because we buy in the same position over and over and over and over again. We're buying goalkeeper, left back, and DM over and over and over and over. We bought Thomas Partey, Sambi, Declan Rice, and Jorginho, all for that same like deep lying playmaker DM role. That's a fucking lot. That's a lot. We bought 4 left back. I can't even begin how many left backs we bought. Arteta re-signed Tierney. He gave him a new contract. He brought in Nuno Tavares. He brought in Zinchenko. He brought in Kivior is playing that position. He's brought Timber. Like, yeah, like we've rebought left back a lot. Left back, that area, we bought a lot of players. Cedric also played in that position. Like, we bought quite a few players to play in that position. And don't even get me started on goalkeeper. So we need to stop rebuying in the same positions over and over again and start moving on, start moving on to, and Turner. That was the other one. Turner. Exactly. We bought a lot of goalkeepers, and none of them have really hit the mark as far as I'm concerned. So yeah. Anton Dunn says Ramsdale was just fine. Should have bought game winners and decisive players higher up the pitch as they win games. Yeah, he was fine. We definitely weren't going, to me, we weren't going anywhere with Ramsdale, but we could have put that off for another 2 seasons or so, because that's actually what I was thinking. I was thinking just let Ramsdale be here for like 1-2 more seasons, see what happens, and then move him on, bring in our Allison, and then sell him for big money. Ramsdale, bring in our Allison, and move on. But I never would have imagined that they do this in this window, when we needed so many other things, Chris says, we bought 5 goalkeepers in 4 years when we had 2 good goalkeepers to begin with. It's an absolute mess. Ashton Mills says, supposedly Arteta misses EPL title by 1 point this season and also 1 point the next season. Then would you want him gone? If yes, then how is that different from the present season? I just feel like it's more difficult than what people are making out to seem. And, I think Arteta is going to get the opportunity to have one more big window, because he fucked up the last one. And then we'll get the midfielder and the striker that we probably should have already had. And then we'll see where we are. We'll see where we are. But, I just feel like context is so important, guys. I don't know what to tell you guys. Like, if you guys want him out, just say you want him out. But you can't. I'm not really going to change the way that I think about the coaching situation, because I know that, one, it's going to be difficult for us to, first of all, I don't think the club is even thinking about it. I'll tell you that right now. 2, I'm not quite sure who I'd want to come in that like right away makes us better. And, Babs made this really good point on Dan's podcast that, Northside was saying, we'll just sack him and bring in a proven winner. And they started talking about Conte, and Babs was like, well, if he's a proven winner, then why couldn't he win with Spurs? And then all this nonsense about it, Spurs, it's this and that. And I'm just like, but that's the thing. It's like Arsenal fans will sit there and start talking about Mourinho, but as if we haven't seen Mourinho and Conte not win with other teams in the Premier League. It's not a guarantee. And so you have to know for sure what this manager is going to be able to do. I'm afraid that we'll bring in somebody and go backwards. Um, I'm afraid that the players that we bought are so unique to Arteta that a new manager won't be able to work with them as well. We'll have to re-spend money on starting over. And so that's why, for me, when I say that Arteta needs to go, it's going to be because I feel like he has all the tools to his disposal. I feel like he's had all the chances that he should have had. And I'm getting towards that point, but I'm not as there as other people are because I still am applying some context to the situation. And so let's see where we are at the end of the season. For me to be saying Arteta out right now when the season hasn't even ended yet feels a little bit like we're just saying it to be saying it. If you want him out, because there's 200 of you guys in here, if you want him out, then you want him out. You're not going to be able to convince me otherwise because I know if we go on a decent run from now until the end of the season, people will start remembering all these things that they were saying in this period and feel some type of way. I feel like a lot of this is based on recent form and stuff like that. Let's just relax. Like, I'm going to relax for a second. You know, let's see where we are at the end of the season. But I've already went Arteta out once. I've already went Arteta out once when I felt like he lost the dressing room. And that's my biggest thing is once you lose the dressing room, I want you gone. That's for sure. And he didn't lose the dressing room. He came back. He's rebuilt the club in a good way. Now it's time to win trophies. But again, it's hard to win trophies. So let's see where we are. Let's see where we are at the end. CJ says he's messed up a lot of windows. That's why you don't want to have a that's why you don't have a top striker right now and you want to give him more windows to waste money. I said he's going to get his next window. If I go Arteta out, what's going to happen? Nothing. So I know people want to convince me that I should be Arteta out right this second. You won't. So we can move on from that. But he's going to get this next window, you guys. I don't know what to tell you. Arsenal are very happy with Arteta as far as I know. So he's not going anywhere. He's going to get this next window. And yeah, he messed up this past window, but I don't think the windows before that he necessarily made big mistakes in. I don't think bringing in the likes of Ben White or, Ramsdale, because a lot of you guys love Ramsdale. Odegaard was a mistake. I don't think those were mistakes. Tomiyasu has had his injury problems. Some of you guys love Thomas Partey. He brought in Thomas Partey. He brought in Gabriel. He brought Saliba back. So this team, a lot of these players that you guys like are players that Arteta is either established in the team or brought into this team. So he hasn't messed up every single window. Did he mess up this past summer window? Absolutely. They definitely made a mistake in this window, but let's see where we are at the end of the season. I don't know how much more I get, how much clearer I can make it that context is so important. It's so, so, so important. And so I don't necessarily feel like I'll get to the end of the season if we don't win anything and not feel like he's not the guy. I'm already feeling kind of like he might not be. But when I say Arteta out, I mean it, so I'm not going to just say it because I'm feeling some type of way about our form right now. And because other people are like, but why don't you see what I see? It's like, I do see what you see. I see exactly what you see. I see the failed windows. I see the fact that he went out of domestic cups. I see all the same things that you guys see. The difference between some of you guys and me is that it's not the end of the season yet. And there's a specific point that I know I need to get to before I'm Arteta out. And I'm getting there, but I'm not quite there yet. So leave it be. At AHWR says Raya absolutely does not deserve to be at Arsenal. And Ramsdale has been robbed of his career purely because he's not Spanish. The fans will never love Raya for this reason. So basically, you're saying that Raya's here only because he's Spanish and Ramsdale's career is over. His career has been robbed of him because he's not Spanish. I'll be really honest with you. That is probably the biggest reach I've ever seen. Raya being Spanish and Arteta being Spanish doesn't mean shit, because if that were the case, Arteta would just buy a bunch of Spanish players. Arteta's bought a bunch of English players. He bought Declan Rice, Ben White, and he also bought Ramsdale. They're all English. What are we saying? The main player in his team is English, Saka. He doesn't have a problem with English people. He's not bringing in Raya because he's Spanish. If that were the case, everybody in our team would be Spanish. Danny Ceballos would be a permanent signing still spinning around in the middle of our midfield. Let's not start the nonsense. Like, they wanted Raya before they even wanted Ramsdale. So before Ramsdale was even a thought, because Ramsdale was the backup option. So let's be all the way freaking for real. Let's be serious right now. Let's not make up things and make it seem like the only reason why Arteta wants Raya on the team is because he's Spanish, because that's a nonsense. Because what basically that's like a dangerous narrative as well, to start putting out there that Arteta only likes people when they're a certain nationality, right? But it's widely reported that Arsenal wanted Raya before they even wanted Ramsdale. So Ramsdale was the backup option. They always wanted Raya, period. So they didn't get him, and they brought in Ramsdale, who is English. If they didn't want an English player playing back there, they would have bought a Spanish player. Everybody in our team would have been Spanish. So then they went in and they got Raya. And I think it's only based on the fact that Inaki Kanya worked with him at Brentford, and they like the way he plays out from the back, not that he's Spanish. Let's stop the nonsense. It's not because he's Spanish. The team, we have one Spanish player in the whole fucking team. Sorry to curse, but we have one Spanish player in this whole team. So let's not start the nonsense that it's because he's Spanish. It's not. It's not because he's Spanish, guys. Let's be serious. It's because of the way that they play out. He played out from the back, and he played with the goalkeeper coach, blah, blah, blah. And Ramsdale's career has not been robbed of him. He has some culpability here. He said in his own interview that he didn't want to play out from the back the way that Arteta wanted him to, and he wanted to compromise. I don't even want to go back here, but when you decide that you don't want to play the way that the manager wants you to play, you are automatically setting yourself up to be replaced, and that has happened. So Ramsdale not being great for maybe a whole season, or let's not say a season, let's say a half season, plus the fact that he didn't want to play the way that the manager wanted him to play, plus the fact that he was letting goals in like nobody's business, all of that came together for Arsenal to go back and see an opportunity to bring in David Raya, a goalkeeper that they always wanted, not because he's Spanish, but because they like the way he plays out from the back. Let's stop the nonsense. As much as I'm not feeling Arteta right now, I'm not about to sit here and pretend like I think that he only likes players because of where they come from. And I feel like that's what a lot of the fans think. A lot of people inside the stadium that decided that it was a better idea not to support Raya and to treat him like a social leper and boo him, not boo him, but, mumble and grumble. And, when we're playing against Manchester City, they thought that was more important than actually supporting him. I know that that's what they think. They think it's because like Ramsdale's being treated some sort of way because he's English. Be fucking for real. Like, I'm sorry. Be serious for 1 second. Arteta has all these English players in his team, but he hates Ramsdale because he's English and because Raya is Spanish. Be serious. Come on, you guys. No. 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 Let's stop. Let's stop. Johnny J. Wick says, okay, I didn't know about Ramsdale admitting he can't play the Arteta way. That changes everything. He needs to go for the team and for. But I've said this, that the situations are not always black and white. Ramsdale was not at the top of the list to be upgraded in the summer. I agree with you guys on that 100%. Was Ramsdale just ousted from his position just because for the sake of it? No. Because everybody knows that at the back end of last season, all of us were asking questions about Ramsdale. I sat here on streams with people that were saying Ramsdale has lost his shit. He's not as good as he used to be. What happened to the guy that saved the Madison goal? Because we did not see that guy for a lot of last season while we were in a title race. And at the beginning of this season, he was also very poor. At the beginning of this season. In preseason, people were like, what's wrong with him? After he let in the Bruno Fernandes goal, after he let in the Rafinha free kick, people were asking questions about Ramsdale before Raya was even talked about. But did he need to be replaced like this? No. No, he did not. It was not necessary. The circus around it didn't make any sense. It was just too much. Now, has Raya set the world alight? No, but what Raya is willing to do is play the way that Inaki Kanya and Arteta have decided they want their goalkeeper to play. And so Raya, that's why he's there. Ramsdale, he said himself out of his own mouth that he didn't want to play that way. He wanted to hoof it long because if he got caught out in the back, he didn't want that. You know, so there's again so many situations. They're more gray area situations than people want it black and white, and it's just not that simple. But Raya is not in that goal because he's Spanish. He's not. Super Kai says because he's Spanish, someone get on the phone to Bellerin, Ceballos, Dennis Suarez, Monreal, and Santi. Time to call all the Spanish boys back because that's what Arteta wants. Blaze says, just I agree with you. Arteta deserves another chance in next season, but at the same time, we can't waste time because it's the last time that we won. I get that. And people are like, well, how long are we meant to wait? Again, saying that you want the manager out for me is just a lot more like I just can't do it without feeling it like genuine in my heart that I want him gone for sure. Like I'm not feeling positive about Arteta. I'll tell you that right now. People that are like, well, if you're not Arteta out, that means that you disagree with everything that he does. No, I don't. No, I don't. I don't agree with everything that he does. In fact, I'm more critical of Arteta than a lot of other people. I don't think you should just blindly follow whatever Arteta does and say like he's doing it right. And do I think that there's maybe a manager out there that can get us 5% better? Yeah. I don't know who that person is. That's up to Edu and them to figure out. But at this moment on January, what are we? January 16th at 6:12 a.m. PST, I'm not feeling like I'm 100% wanting him out right now, but I am feeling like at the end of the season, I may feel that way depending on how far we are from the title race and how far we go in the Champions League. That's what I'm saying. I'm sorry, guys. Let's see. Elijah said, "Would you do a better job?" I don't know. Maybe. Give me the job. Arteta out, Jessica in. First thing I would do is go out there and buy a striker. I'd probably go to 4-4. No, I'd go to a 4-2-3-1. I would do a lot of different things. So maybe you guys should put me in the job. I would do a good job. They wouldn't listen to me, but I would try. Steve Barrow says, question, does anyone know when Arteta's process is due to be completed? I don't know if you guys remember, like you guys actually understand like a process never ends. A project doesn't end. This whole like idea that like okay, so now we're at phase 5, so it's done now, so win. Like fucking relax, calm your tits for a second. Like you're always going to be ever changing, like it's never just going to be done. Like I think the phase and the process was based more around turning over the squad and starting anew after the club had crumbled for like a decade. And so they needed to kind of like start anew and refresh. And so people are still going the process and trust the process and da da da. That's like so 2022. Like move on from that. Like we're not talking about phases and processes and things like that. I think what we're talking about now is, can Arteta graduate from a coach that turned over the squad and made them competitive into a genuine winner? And those are the conversations that are more interesting than continuously going, well, trust the process. But when the process is over, like it's not a funny joke and it's not clever anymore, because anybody that really gets like the process never ends. You're still ever changing. Every club is in a process, not just Arsenal. Arsenal are the only club that has spoken about it and the only ones that are bantered about it and the only ones whose fans act like it's a banterable thing. But it's not the process. Trusting the process and having a project, none of that stuff is taboo or only something that Arsenal does. Everybody has a project. Everybody has a process. Everybody is trying to figure out how to get better. And so we're in the process right now of, is Arteta going to be a better coach that can take us from being competitive to winning trophies? Saying the process thing is just nonsense now. Do you know what I mean? Like it's okay, we get it. The process, that was 2022. Like we're in 2024 now, we're beyond that now, you know? Thank you so much for your super chat. Jules says, I'm done with Arteta. Look at Xabi Alonso's stats at Leverkusen. Another future elite manager missed, like Pep and Klopp. I mean, if we're going to use Xabi Alonso as a stick to beat Mikel Arteta when he hasn't won anything yet, fair enough. You know, you want to look at stats, but I mean, it's the Bundesliga. Are we going to pretend as though the Bundesliga is the same as the Premier League? Are we going to pretend it's not damn near a one-horse race? Is that what we're going to act like? And again, Xabi Alonso hasn't won anything yet. So if he goes the rest of the season and doesn't win anything and doesn't win the Bundesliga, then this is going to look a nonsense. The only elite managers, in my opinion, that are out there are Ancelotti and freaking the two that are in the Premier League, and Pep and Klopp. Everybody else, there are major pluses and minuses to every single one of those people. Tuchel, Luis Enrique, freaking Jose Mourinho, Conte, Xabi Alonso, Arteta. All of these people have pluses and minuses because there's genuinely only 3 elite managers out there. Xabi Alonso has shown nothing to be elite. He has a good half of a season. Let's be serious. 1/2 of a good season. And he's doing fantastic. Don't get me wrong. He's doing fantastic. Let's see how he does when he goes to Bayern, because that's what they're saying. He's going to take over for Tuchel at the end. Let's see what he does when he gets to Bayern and everything is different. You're expected to win. You have challenges with players, blah, 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 blah. But to use Xabi as a stick to beat Arteta with, for me, is like using De Zerbi or, you know, somebody like that, who the remit is not the same. Bayer Leverkusen is not expected to do shit. They're not a top club. They're a developmental club, but he has had one good half of a season. Xabi Alonso looks great, by the way. Like, he does. Like, I'm not taking anything away from him. So is the guy that is managing Girona right now. They both look great because they're at clubs that aren't expected to do anything, that are overachieving based on the requirements. And now people want to beat, like, no. Like, we need to be trying to figure out if Arteta can become the next Pepper Klopp, not whether or not, I'm not looking at Xabi. He's done nothing yet. So he's not an elite manager. He hasn't done anything. How is Xabi Alonso an elite manager? Because he's had one good half of a season and he's doing fine, but let's be serious for 1 second, you guys. Colin says, I hear you, Jess. The problem is if you speak ill of Arteta, the toxic positives think you're antichrist. It's annoying. All of it is annoying. If I say that I'm not 100% like against Arteta yet, and I want to see what it is to the end of the season, I'm a toxic positive. But if I say that, you know, if he doesn't win anything this season, then changing managers should not be a taboo conversation, then the toxic positives get me. I'm just giving y'all how I feel about it, and you can't make me feel the way that you feel. And I'm not going to try to make you guys feel the way that I feel. If you want Arteta out, say you want Arteta out, but don't try to convince me, because I know how I feel about Arteta right now. I'm not feeling great, but I also know that changing managers is not a like a fail-proof thing. It's not change a manager and everything just goes up from there. You know, so we have to be careful about wanting Arteta out, and also think about, you know, what could happen on the opposite direction. You could change the manager and things could get worse. So people need to stop acting like Arteta out, get a new manager is such a simple, easy thing. Remember, Chelsea got rid of Tuchel and they haven't been able to recover. And everybody thought Tuchel was a clown. They were like, oh, Tuchel, you know, he's this guy, he's a good cup manager, blah, blah, blah. Got rid of him. They've had 2 managers since and they haven't recovered. So moving on from managers is not always like, it's not linear. You guys want Arteta out, but have you actually thought about what it's going to be like when Arteta leaves, and who you could potentially bring in, and how that could actually go in a worse direction than up? Because it seems like people think like if we just change the manager, we're just going to start winning trophies. There's so much more in between that I'm very cautious of the wanting Arteta out just because I'm feeling bad about Arsenal right this moment, you know? So, but if he ends up not being the guy, I'm not like, and I'm feeling like he may not end up being the guy. Like, my genuine feeling about Arteta is he may just end up being the guy that helped us get to a certain point, and we may need somebody better to take us over the line, you know? You see what I'm saying? Not that he's this devil guy, like he's this awful guy. Like, because I think sometimes the way that people talk about Arteta also is a little bit like rank. It's like he's not this evil guy that's like blah blah blah. Like he's making mistakes, whatever. But if he were to leave at the end of this season and what he brought to us was, one season of Champions League and confirm Champions League for the next season, a team that has Saka and Martinelli and Odegaard and Declan Rice in it and blah, blah, blah. And we just needed to recruit the right manager to take us to the next level. That's fine with me. That's fine with me. But picking that right manager is so hard. So I'm worried about that. And that's why I'm a little bit cognizant of just Arteta out, because people are saying just get Mourinho in, but then after we get a season of him not being able to use any of the players that we have and wanting to bring in old guys that have been around for years that played for him at fucking Porto and shit, and Inter, and we're changing it over, and you don't have your young Arsenal anymore, you don't have any academy players, you don't have shit, and then we still don't win, then what? So I just feel like it's a little bit more than just get him out, you know? But I'm not unwilling to have the conversation, because I don't think it should be as taboo as it has been, I think Arsenal should be flexible. I think the project should be beyond Arteta. I think it should be about what the club wants, and a manager should be able to kind of pop in and out but I do think what we're doing right now is very heavily reliant on Arteta. And I think they should separate themselves from Arteta just a little bit so that they could see clearly, because if they can see clearly, they may be able to identify somebody that can take us to the next level and it not be like this big thing. Because I also saw that Arteta would be high on Barcelona's list if Xavi were to be sacked, and he could get sacked, so it may not be as far away as people think. Because if Barcelona come calling for Arteta, he will go, he'll be gone, so I don't think we're that far away from this conversation being a reality, whether it's the end of this season or maybe even the end of next season, because yeah, either he becomes the guy and we start winning trophies, or it starts getting hella toxic, or somebody comes and gets him. But I do feel like people genuinely feel like if we just sack Arteta, that everything will be all right. If you take a look around at people that have sacked their managers, it hasn't always gone up. Sometimes they've stayed the same or they've gotten worse. So you have to take that into consideration, take that into consideration. But, I'm not unwilling to see Arsenal beyond Arteta. I've said that so many times. Toan says Arteta failed as a player in Spain, had to go to Scotland. What does that have to do with anything? First of all, do you guys actually rate your managers based on how good they were as a player? Because I need you guys to go look up Arsene Wenger as a player or Klopp as a player. Who cares? Tuchel as a player. These guys were bums. Like Arteta failing as a player and ending up in Scotland is a nonsense. Like, I know you guys are not thinking about that. Who cares? Like, the best managers aren't always ones that were the best players. They're not. History would tell you that, so I don't really care that he failed as a player. I didn't like him as a player. I hated him at Arsenal, but that's beyond, what's going on here. Lynn says, look at at EH. He got sacked at Bournemouth, done well at Newcastle, but he's now going in the same way it was at Bournemouth. I feel like, yeah, Eddie Howe is treading a very close line. Like he definitely, I feel like they'll start to look for replacements. But the thing about Newcastle that's different than Arsenal is that they've really woven this new era of Arsenal with Arteta, where I don't think this new era of Newcastle is dependent on Eddie Howe. So I think they will switch managers frequently to find their pep, where I think Arsenal are going down their usual route of the arson route. And that's the dangerous route to go down, because Arsene should have been moved on maybe 5 years before he was moved on, and he wasn't. And you miss out on opportunities to make decisions from a place of strength, if that makes sense. I think when you're desperate and you're at a low period, you make worse decisions and you make decisions from a place of weakness. That's not a good place to make big decisions like changing your manager. And that's why I think Arsenal really need to look at the lay of the land and look at the managers that will be available in the summer or maybe even the summer after and say, if Arteta is not the guy, then can we move him on or move in a different direction without the entire thing collapsing, but being able to just add somebody on top of this to give us 5% more? Because it's kind of like the Gary O'Neill Iriola. I think his name is Iriola. The new Bournemouth effect is Bournemouth escaped relegation with Gary O'Neill, which was great. And then from a place of strength with Gary O'Neill, they sacked him and moved on to a better manager. And they're going higher now. And I think that's good. You know, you hire, you want to move on from a place of strength, not from a place of desperation. And so I don't want it to get to the space where Arteta fails miserably and then we're scrambling. If we end the season again, well-ish, where we still have Champions League, blah, 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 they might want to start considering it, but I know they won't. They're going to give Arteta one more big window. That's what I think. But yeah, let's see. Boy says Ato flamed Pep for being an average player. Now Pep is the best manager in the world. Yeah, none of these things even matter. And like being a good player doesn't necessarily mean you'll become a good manager either. I mean, Lampard, Wayne Rooney, these guys, let's be serious. You know, Imran says people criticizing Arteta, would Klopp win the league with the same Arsenal team? I don't think so. That's an interesting question. Would Klopp win the league with the same Arsenal team? I don't think so. Well, controversial maybe, but I think if Klopp was our manager last season and Arteta was not, I think we would have won the league. I think he would have found a solution. The thing about like Klopp and Pep is that they find solutions for problems that haven't arisen yet. They're proactive. They're not reactive. And I think Arteta hasn't really figured out how to be proactive with things. Like he lets things break fully, and for us to lose so many points and drop and go out of so many competitions before he makes the change. And I think Klopp would have figured out something earlier when Saliba went down that stabilized the team and didn't require us to expose ourselves with Rob Holding. And that we're the type of you lose a player of Saliba's caliber, the overall confidence of the team drops by a lot. And the overall confidence of our team dropped a lot when Saliba left or got injured and Rob Holding was next to them. They didn't have the juice. They didn't have the balls. They didn't have it. They didn't have it. You know, because if that had been the Invincibles, they would have won that league with Rob Holding back there. They would have, because they would have said, you are not going to stop us from winning this shit. The team that we had last season, I think they needed somebody to patch up that hole better so that they could have the confidence to do what they need to do, because they don't have that same mentality that those types of teams of our past had, where they could have a Seagon or some guy back there that wasn't as good, but they could still make it work, you know? And so I think Arteta didn't see that this team was too young and too green and too new in a title race scenario to have such a big gaping hole at the back. And then when the pressure got on and they started looking around and they started seeing, oh shit, we're gonna have to reply, you know, yeah, Gabrielle overdoing it, you have Ben White overdoing it, try to keep this shit together. I think Klopp would have figured out something sooner. And I think he would have trusted Kivior, to be honest. I'll be honest with you. I think he would have trusted Kivior sooner. But Arteta didn't, and he paid the price for it. I still think that that's a major reason why we didn't win the league, is because he allowed that problem to fester so far, you know? And when Jesus is out there saying that that's basically the reason why we lost the league, you can look at the failed penalty against West Ham, you can look at Southampton, blah, 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 but you just can't have somebody like that in your team when your team doesn't have that winning mentality yet, you know? And so I don't think Klopp would have, I think Klopp would have figured that out, if I'm honest with you. Pep and Klopp figure out solutions quick because they've been there and done it before. Arteta doesn't figure out solutions quick enough, and he sticks with things that don't work too long. Anybody that Anybody that's anybody could have told you that having Rob Holding at the back would have collapsed that team. Like, you just can't have it. You just can't have it. You have to figure out something else. So yeah, I think Klopp would have figured that out. I don't think our team is as bad as people are making out to seem. People always think it's just the team, it's the players that he has. And yeah, he is missing maybe a big personality up front, which is on him because he decided to bring in Kai Havertz. Maybe we are missing a left back, but the idea that like Saka and Martinelli and these guys are not good and Klopp couldn't do anything with this group. Look at the team that Klopp inherited. He could do something with what we have now. I don't think we're getting as much as we can with this group. I thought last season we got damn near as much juice out of that lemon. Last season with that team, that's the almost all the juices we could have squeezed out of that group. That is. But this group, we're not even anywhere near it. Where we maxed ourselves out last season, probably this season, we're getting 70% out of this group, maybe. They're not playing to the best of their ability. And there's so many players that are not playing to the best of their ability for multiple different reasons, So I don't think this team is as bad as people are making it out to seem. I think every time we're not playing well, it's like, yeah, well, we don't have, look at what we do have. Look at what we do have. We have so much. We have so much. We have almost like the best center back pairing in the league. We have Declan Rice. We have Odegaard. We have Saka. We have Martinelli. We have a lot of shit that a lot of other teams don't have. So we need to stop pretending like it's just about always going into the market. He needs to get this team going, which is what David Ornstein said, is that it's more important for Arsenal right now to get the players that they have at their disposal right now, get the best out of that group rather than going out into the market. Because this team is not bad. It's not bad. I don't know why people always think this team is bad. This is damn near the same team. The only thing is that I think the biggest miss that you have is like not having that Xhaka and Partey tandem in the middle. But despite not having them, we've played almost every single game that we've played. We should have won. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think Rice and Havertz, when we played against Spurs, we had Rice and freaking Vieira start that game. Do you guys remember the first half of the Spurs game? Do you guys remember it? We should have pounded them. We had so many opportunities in that first half just by pressing them into mistakes, and we didn't do it. Then they scored on the other end, and then Jorginho makes the mistake. That's not about not having blah, 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 blah. Jesus needs to put that in the back of the fucking net. That one chance that he gets, it still haunts me to this day, to this day, to this day, to this day. So, and Jesus can make that chance. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, I don't think it's so much about we don't have this, we don't have that. It's we're not getting the most out of what we have now. And even if you add another striker and all that kind of stuff on top of that, that could help. But if you're not getting the most out of what we got going on now, you're not going to do anything. So, yeah, period. Like, Arteta needs to get more out of what he got going on. He has to, because this team is not that bad. And I feel like we're always letting them and the manager off the hook by just being like, yeah, well, buy Benzema. Like, how about you figure out what is going on with Martinelli? How about you do that? That could solve a lot of your problems just right there. Figure out what's going on with Martinelli. Get something out of Martinelli. I hear like some of the stuff I've heard about Martinelli the last couple of weeks has been nonsense, because Martinelli was untouchable last season. Now all of a sudden people are feeling like the guy is a bum. Like, get something out of Martinelli. Try that. Let's start there. Let's start there. So, yeah, I personally think that if you look at our season, you can say that we're probably not getting the most out of the group that we have. And maybe that's the tactics, whatever, but we're not getting the most out of it. And if you just go back to the Brighton game, which was not that long ago, we were on the cusp of really clicking into gear right then. And I don't know, we went to Anfield, and ever since then, we just haven't been the same. And so if we could just even go back to what we were against Brighton, that was a very good performance. It was perfect. I think we beat them 2-0. Yeah, that was like perfect, I think. Did we concede? No, we didn't. We beat them 2-0, and it was easy. The only thing is that we didn't score more goals, and we should have, you know? So I think it's a lot of it has to do with the most recent form. People are feeling like we have nothing. But if you just go back to the Brighton game, I remember us talking like that was our best performance of the season. We were really good. So I don't know. I think we just need to get more out of what we got. Meyer says, let's not debate about the Xhaka situation. There is no Xhaka situation. There is no Xhaka situation. I wish we would have just recruited properly in that position so I don't have to hear this man's name. He was good, but he had 7, 8 seasons with us and had one really good one. Let's not pretend like he was like unmovable, unupgradable. He was very upgradable. So we just didn't do the right thing. And we brought in somebody that doesn't necessarily hit that mark. Fine. But continuously acting like Shaka, no, it's like, oh my God. Like we have been in even with Kai Havertz in the midfield, we have created so many chances. So I don't understand why we're talking about Granite. It's like, come on. Imran says, Jess, I get your point, but this season, why is there more pressure on Arteta to win the league than Klopp? Compare Liverpool versus Arsenal player for player. Liverpool has a better squad. Um, but this season, why is there more pressure on Arteta to win the league than Klopp compared to Liverpool to because we've never won it. They've relieved their pressure after 30 years of not winning the Premier League. They won it. So they did that. And they did it in a era where, Man City were there and still are the best team in Europe, probably best team in the world. So they've done it. And so that's why there's a lot of pressure on Arsenal to win it, is because one, we were the closest to winning it last season, or we should have won it last season. And then so everybody expected us to go up a level. Other teams have gotten better. Everything is a lot closer this season. We haven't necessarily gotten better either. So of course there's lots of pressure. But Liverpool does have a better squad because they have what, like, they don't have do they have they have the game changers in their team that we lack. They have the goalkeeper that keeps them in games. They have, a Trent Alexander-Arnold, which you could probably say is not the defender, but is the midfielder that we're probably missing. Somebody that can just change a game like that, whether he's scoring the goal himself or putting the ball on a plate for somebody else. And then they have a goal scorer in Salah, who also creates chances and is very reliable. And so we're kind of missing all three of those pieces right now. And so I would say their starting 11 is definitely probably more potent than ours just because of that, because those three players are so important, and so pivotal, and they can change everything for you. But I don't think their squad is like that much better than ours, like the whole squad. I think those three players make a massive difference for them. And like if we had our Salah, which would be our striker, like if we had Salah as our center forward and we had Trent Alexander-Arnold as our left 8 and we had Allison instead of Raya or Ramsdale, I think we'd be speaking a lot differently about our season. And that's where Arsenal need to get to. They need to bring in those types of players. And we talked about that on the Cannon Club too, is do we have our KDB? And I think the answer is, do we have a top 5 player? Femi said, do we have a top 5 player in our team? And the answer is no. And so, there's that, so the team is not that bad. It's definitely a very, very good team, and we're not getting as much out of it. But there are the players that we are missing, so it's two things. It's getting the most out of what we got and then bringing in those game changers that, even if you don't have some of your best players, can carry you a little bit. And right now, if we're not at the best of our ability, we can't even carry one or two lower level players in our starting 11 because the level drops off so much, And so we're learning some things about these players, and I think we're learning that like they might just need a couple more personalities around them to get them over the line. Social Join says they have a lot of forwards, so their football style works for them. With 5 subs, Pep just changes the attack, and desperation attack gets the results. It's average overall. And Arsenal need to spend more money up front. That's why I'm very against the idea of, you know, rebuying in the goalkeeper, left back, DMs positions right now. I want to see all the money in the summer. The first money that goes out in the summer has got to go to a striker and a winger. Arsenal need 5 top quality attackers. 5, you know, and we don't have that right now. Um, we need that. We need that badly. Um, let's see. Chris says, McAllister, that's the man I wanted to replace Granite. Gutted. He went to Liverpool. Yeah, they had him, like, we were like lightly linked, but they had already like spoken to him and got it done and got some cheap ass deal with Brighton. So, can't cry over spilled milk. Like, he's a good player. He also has his flaws. You know, Liverpool fans have hated him for periods of the season. I don't know if you guys know that, but there are periods of the season where they have not liked Alexis McAllister. So he's great, but I still think we could do better than that. I think McAllister is good, but I still think there are plenty of players that we could look at that could do that job, if not and better. Laz says, we miss a player like Partey. Odegaard just said that Partey makes so much space so he can match up with Gabby at the front. I don't know when Odegaard said that, but we need, I don't know. From now until the end of the season, Partey can, add a boost and move Declan to the 8 or whatever. But long term, we just need to kind of move on from him. We miss a player like Partey, but we're going to continue to miss Partey if he's the only player in our team that can do those things. So yeah, but listen, we've spoken for about an hour and 30 minutes, and I really enjoyed it. We'll do another show at 9 p.m. UK time, so make sure you guys set your notifications for that. Not quite sure what I'm talking about yet, but we'll figure it out. Scheduling a show with Diluted, a live show, so I'll let you guys know about that. And then the next Cannon Club episode will actually be Patreon only, and it will be out on Friday. And then the next one that's going to be actually out on the channel will be on Monday. So if you guys didn't get a chance to look at the last Cannon Club or the first Cannon Club episode, you guys can do that now while you wait for the 9 p.m. show. You guys can also listen to that on Apple Podcast as well as Spotify, and let me know what you guys thought about it, because we really enjoyed making it. Make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel on your way out, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.